Today's topic of discussion is cloud security, right? So we're gonna understand what exactly cloud is and various aspects of it, and then we're gonna cover some of the other, cloud computing services and why cloud security is important, and also we're gonna understand the attacking part of it, right? Like why security has become like the most concerning area for many of the organizations who are moving into the cloud, right? So just a quick background about myself. So I'm a passionate information and network security professional for like 3+ years as of now. I'm also a cybersecurity researcher. I've written blogs on various critical vulnerabilities that I've identified on many of the insurance and banking companies in India. Um, so if you're like fond of reading infosec write-ups, and also there I have my Medium link, so you can just go and read the blog that I've written. And I'm also a leader and speaker trainer at various other platforms, to name a few. They are like infosec girls and diversity and secure and access, and of course Securzy. And I've also been introduced as a keynote speaker at OAPS. That's the very recent one. Let's just begin with the today's topic. So what we're gonna discuss today is the basics of virtualization, the introduction to cloud computing, the key premises of it, how like cloud security has become like a major concerning area, the best security practices one can have when moving on to the cloud, right? And we're gonna take a brief look on various case studies on cloud hacking, right? So we're gonna just head in and understand the each aspects of it, right? So what is virtualization? So when it comes to traditional architecture, you would see that we have one hardware, like on top of it, we have one operating system, right? And then the applications are deployed on that OS, right? But when it comes to a virtual architecture, right? So we have one hardware, we have one virtualization layer, and then on that virtualization layer, we have multiple, I mean, we can deploy multiple OS and multiple applications on each of the OS, and that can be accessed like way around in that particular environment. Like either it's like a computer connected network, or maybe a server that has connected to the various devices, right? So this is like the basic understanding of what virtualization is. So talking about cloud computing, so cloud computing is delivering of cloud computing services over the internet by the cloud service providers. So those computing services could be like the data storage, or the servers, or the database, or the networking part, and the software as on as needed basis, depending upon each organization and their requirement, right? The many companies who provide this cloud computing services. One is Amazon AWS, Microsoft Azure, then we have Google, then we have IBM. So let's hop on to the next one, next slide. That is why it is called as cloud computing. So cloud is basically just used as a metaphor for the internet, because as I said previously, it's just the hardware that are, and the other required resource that are actually stored somewhere at a virtual physical space location, and then those services and those resources, those computes, are being made available to the users over the internet. So let's understand the key premises of cloud computing, right? So shared pool of configurable system resources, decentralized, the rapid provisioning, remote access, and minimum management. So it has also reduced the IT hardware and upfront cost. Obviously, it has the flexibility and scalability, and depending upon the use of it, it could be like public, private, community, and hybrid. So we're gonna head to understand what cloud computing models are. Typically, to focus the most worldwide used cloud computing models are infrastructure as a service, platform as a service, and software as a service, right? And as of 2022, as it's an evolving domain. So now people are like really understanding cloud and getting into it, right? And forming the infrastructure and everything. So one has also, I mean, many, like around 30 to 40% of organizations are actually thinking of function as a service to be, considered for various of their operations. And then there are containers as a service, depending upon the use, So this is just a small, overview of the three main important, types of cloud computing. So in ours, like you actually, communicate with the physical data center and servers and networking storage. PaaS has, access to the OS and the database management tools, and then SaaS has the cloud access to the cloud hosted applications as well. So just a brief about what exactly PaaS and SaaS are, and what kind of communication that you actually rent from the cloud service providers, right? So moving on, let's just understand what are the challenges in cloud computing. So data security issues, managing the security and compliance part, managing multi-clouds, cost management, segmented use and adoption, the performance, building a private cloud integration. So depending upon each of the architectural diagram, one or the other organization adopt, these are the quite common factors that every organization face. So let's understand why cloud security. As because if you would see, like, it is no different than the traditional security, other than having not relying on your hardwares and the servers and the networking and the data server, because they are being managed by the providers. So there are like multiple threat models to each of the resource that we consume in cloud computing. And then there comes an attack surface of it, right? So depending upon your architecture, how effectively or how efficiently you design your cloud computing architecture, the more I would say the lesser is the attack surface to it, right? So here's a good example. Code Spaces had to actually shut its, shut down its company due to an AWS credit theft. Now, so we're gonna have like more case studies on it in the upcoming slides. So let's understand cloud shared responsibility matrix. So as I said that cloud space had to has to shut itself down because Amazon also couldn't help further to it, because of this, because Amazon, I mean, all the cloud service providers are very keen on this shared responsibility metrics, right? So we're just going to dive in and understand what exactly cloud shared responsibility metrics is. So they are like so the responsibilities are like divided. Like it's like the data part, who is going to be responsible for it. So all things that are being happening at the client side, so who is going to be responsible for it, right? Tenant is you as a user, right? And providers are the cloud service providers. So then there is an identity and access management category, and then there is a functional logic, and then there is a application, the runtime, middleware, OS, virtualization, load balancing, networking, servers, and then physical security, right? So let's understand what are the security in on-premises versus cloud, right? So in on-premises, all the firewalls, all the ACLs, all the IPS and IDS, all the WAFs, all the SOC and log analytics tools, all the anti-malware EDRs, all the DLP softwares, and all the fine integrity monitoring, the key management system, all these needs to be taken care by you, right? When it comes to cloud providers. So I'll just take an example of AWS, Azure, Google, Oracle, and IBM and Alibaba Cloud that's not being used as of now. So these cloud providers have like their own security groups and network, AWS network ACLs, access control list. So what happens in the cloud cloud environment is, so they do have like security groups, network security groups, right? So in cloud, like if say for example, this is your cloud architecture, and then you have something called as VPC, right? This is your virtual private network, right? And then say for example, you have an instance, your virtual machine, right? This is your virtual machine that is actually running in this particular VPC, right? So there is something called as network security group that actually defines what traffic you will be allowing someone to communicate with this VM that's gonna have maybe your application installed on it, maybe some of the other important or crucial information crucial informational assets deployed on this particular VM, right? So yeah, the attack surface for attacker to actually attack these cloud environments, right? So first is like the misconfigurations of it, the identity and access management. Like giving access to permissions would actually lead to a disaster, inadequate change control, a lack of security architecture and strategy. Having a weak security architecture in cloud could lead to a disaster. uh, Vulnerable web interfaces leading to SQL injections and access attack if any of the web deployed uh, applications on any of the VMs or any other thing, and if it's vulnerable to either of web application attacks, that's also one of an entry point, an attack surface for an attacker to attack your cloud environments. Having a weak and default and hard-coded credentials within your developing resource, right? Coding errors, buffer overflows, are not effectively managing it. Insufficient identity, credential and access management and key management, account hijacking if you are using like a default credentials or something like that. Insider threats, one who already has access to it and then decides to do some sort of anomalous activities in your cloud. So insecure interfaces and APIs having insecure key storage and rotations, and that could actually cause to end loophole for your cloud environment, right? Thank you so much for joining.